Welcome to the Super Smash Cast and the Casket Minds podcast. I'm Ryan Ashley Wall, and joining me tonight is
Mitchell Sheffield
and Drew.
Awesome, guys. It's so good to have you back on. We have done actually Nintendo 2 Switch content together before when we talked about the Direct on the Smash Cast. That was a very fun episode. So this is a little bit of a reunion talking about the Nintendo Switch 2 with the Nintendo Mitch Drew.
That was epic.
Yes, I'm sorry. I workshopped that line. I'm not going to lie. But we all got it at launch, so that's pretty neat. It also equips us, here we are 2 weeks, I think 2 weeks exactly, since the Switch 2 launch. And so we've got a little time under our belt with the console to play around with it, to mess around settings, play games, and experiment with the options. So what we want to do is review this new hardware.
I've decided 7 out of 10. I didn't have fun. Episode's over, guys.
Mitch is applying to work at IGN.
Hire me.
It's going to be on your resume. but
7 out of 10 interview.
7 out of 10. It launched on June 5th and in 4 days sold 3.5 million, which is pretty insane. We have no idea what the drop-off will be, and there will be a drop-off. There always is. So, strong start. That doesn't necessarily mean strong finish, but pretty interesting overall. We all got it launch day, and we all got it different ways. So, well, actually, me and Drew got it very similar ways, with the caveat that Drew pre-ordered and I did not. But Mitch, you got it different than either of us. What was your launch day like?
My launch day was sitting on 3 different websites, the only 3 websites that you could pre-order it, which were Target, Walmart, and Best Buy. At midnight, naturally, everyone was trying to get on at the same time. Target was the first one that actually let people through. Walmart was an interesting debacle where it was one of those where you click and you're in the queue. And I was in the queue for 45 minutes. I didn't try Target because Target was my least favorite of the options. I have a Best Buy credit card, so it's fake money. And that's my excuse at least. And so that was my preferred option, was waiting for Best Buy. And in typical Best Buy Mitch relationship, this toxic relationship that we have, it took them 40 minutes to put up the link to this thing to get working. It was absolutely insane. So I'm sitting here and I'm doom scrolling on Twitter and I'm like, please don't be sold out. Please don't be sold out. I still have my Walmart tab open. Everyone's like, Target's working. I'm like, do I just bite the bullet? Do I just let it happen? And then as soon as I was fixing to go to Target, Best Buy opened. And I was like, oh, thank God. So I snagged it about 12:40, and then I later went in and got the Pro Controller 1:30 because I couldn't sleep. I was excited. I was like, But I was also seeing people being like, I've already had my order canceled. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. There's no way. I am not doing this with you, Best Buy. We're not going through this at 1 a.m. in the morning. And interesting enough, I was obviously the first of the 3 to pre-order because Drewby got his the next morning when GameStop opened. I guess spoilers alert for Drewby's story. Sorry, Drewby. And then Ryan's story is even better. But I was the last one to get it of the 3 of us, despite waiting up until midnight or past midnight to get mine secured. So we're almost 2 weeks to the actual time that we're recording this that I got mine, thanks to UPS.
The best part is I remember when I got mine, you were like, I kind of hate that you just walked up and got it. A couple hours later, you had it. It's like, yeah. But I guess if you don't mind, Drew, I'll go next since I'm already partially
go for
it. So, yeah, I got GameStop was doing this thing where they were opening the store at 3 p.m. for, I guess you would call it same day pre-orders. It's like They had a certain number in stock. In this case, there were 30 of them, and it was like 20 of the bundle and 10 of the standard. And I counted my spot in line. I was like, well, I guess I'm getting the standard, because I was like 31, right? No, I was like 32 in line. No, sorry. Math is hard. I was 22 in line. So I was just outside the range where, because I assumed that the entire front of the line was all getting the bundle, you know, and I was one off, right? Because the guy in front of me, somebody got just the standard one, and the guy in front of me got the bundle, and it was the last one. And so when I went in to order, I got the standard, and I was like, well, at least I get Mario Kart physically. So I did it, and they marked on my receipt what I thought was 150, but it was 1 SD, as in one standard, because the other ones were marked like 2 MK from like Mario Kart bundle. I didn't know that's what it was. Like, I only had my receipt, so I had no context. And I thought, shoot, I'm 150th in line, which sounds reasonable because there were also tons of like pre-orders at this location too. One thing I appreciate about GameStop is they were counting them individually as they were selling them. So like there was no overselling happening. I was thankful for that. I went in midnight to go get it. And funnily enough, it was the same day pre-order people they said were going into the store to get theirs first. And at that moment, I learned that I was 1 SD, which means I was first in line. So
and you had reserved that day.
Yeah. So like I was the first one to walk out of this GameStop with a Switch 2, and I'm telling you, it was 12:02 midnight. Like it was fast. And when I walked out, like there were cheers. And the best part of this story is some lady was like, he gets to go to bed. Like, absolutely. Because when I got home, all I did was set up the system transfer and go to bed.
Valid.
So, Mitch, how about you? Or not Mitch, Drew. Sorry, Drew Erasure.
It happens to me all the time, all right?
How was your launch day?
My launch day was good. I pre-ordered at GameStop, like Mitch said. Went there, the first day that you could do that. I showed up early, not as early as I wanted to. I wanted to get there even earlier than I went. And I wish I would have, because I definitely would have been able to secure the Mario Kart World bundle. But similarly, the guy in front of me got the last bundle. So I was like, dang, man. But then I went back to GameStop because they called me and they were like, hey, if you come back this, like the day of at 3 p.m., you can finalize your receipt. So that way, we can get you in right away. I got there early, like an hour early or something like that. Well, maybe not that much. But I got there early, right? And I ended up having to wait like, I don't know, probably a few hours. There were so many people there because I didn't know that they were doing the thing of like, hey, if you didn't pre-order it, you can kind of pre-order it today. And so there's just a ton of people there, and they were going through all of those people who had like marked themselves down to do that before they were like helping anyone else. So I was like, dang, I'm just going to be here forever. And I was there forever, but
still there.
Yeah, it was worth it. I ended up being in the 30s in line whenever I actually got there at the midnight release. And I ended up going a few hours early because they had a Smash tournament. I kind of got wrecked. I'm super rusty on Smash. I haven't played it in years. I was playing as Villager, and I was going against a Ness. And I was doing good at first. And I even had a moment where I had like 99% health, dropped the bowling ball and launched him out of the map. And it was awesome because he had already taken one of my lives away. So like everyone was like cheering and going crazy. And I was like, all right, I got this. I'm locked in. And as you know, with Nest mains, a lot of times
PK
they like
fire.
to, they like to spam that PK fire. And let me tell you what, he spammed that PK fire. So I did not win, got knocked out of the tournament really quickly, but it was still fun. And it was just fun, like having this like big collective, like everyone's getting the Switch, everyone's excited, everyone's talking about it, talking about what they're looking forward to on the console. And I haven't like really experienced that in a super long time. So it was really just good vibes.
Same.
It kind of felt like it was like one of those like weird, like almost deja vu feelings of like, oh, I haven't felt something like this since like before 2020. So it was, I don't know, it was a fun time. But yeah, I went home, set up the console, installed Mario Kart World, hopped on it for like 2 minutes, and then I went to bed because I was just like, yeah, it's late. I'm gonna just pick it back up the next day.
Was this you guys' first hardware midnight launch?
Yeah, that was mine, I think.
Same. I've done many midnight video game launches, but first midnight hardware launch.
I've done one, and it wasn't for the Switch 2, as my story has unfolded. Mine was it wasn't the actual launch, but it was the Destiny bundle, which was like the white PS4 in the year after launch.
Yeah.
And I went to that, and it was the same day as another game that was coming out, but it was really cool to be a part of that.
Yeah. I mean, the atmosphere was really good. The people were really nice. Like I was telling Drew before we started, and I'm sorry if this thunderstorm's coming through. It just kind of picked up like crazy.
Same for me. I was gonna make a segue of PK thundering outside right now.
But yeah, like I was telling Drew before we got on that like the closest I can remember to this was the Halo 3 launch. Was very fun. And this was very similar to that in terms of like nobody was a jerk. Everybody understood the process. Everybody there was just happy to be there, enthusiastic, just all around decent. So like you didn't have to deal with anybody screaming or irate or even just mildly annoyed. Everybody just seemed to be good mood, good experience all around, I would say.
It's because it was a Nintendo product.
That is true.
Yeah, I mean, I can't sit here and pretend like I intimately know all the fan bases, and probably some experiences somewhere were way less positive than the one I had. But
generally, like between the mainstay of your consoles, though, Nintendo fans are generally happier just because they usually always have less, so they're always like, I guess it's not ignorance, but it's like you're happy with what you get because you know what you're getting with Nintendo.
Right. Yeah, that checks. That checks. Yeah, I also, like I said, don't have a lot of experience with hardware launches. At least the midnight stuff.
That's fair. My only other one was for Destiny, which is, Bungie's first game post Halo. So
right.
The vibes were immaculate there of just everyone being super excited for this huge like unicorn game coming out. But I've also been to like plenty of midnight launches for games where like it was super negative, mainly COD stuff. And that's just because of how general the COD fan base is.
Yeah.
That's one I am familiar with, and that does get rough. The Black Ops launch was nowhere near as fun as the Halo one. People get straight up personal in those.
Yes.
Yeah, they do.
But that being said, like I still love Call of Duty, so like no shade to the franchise itself, but yeah.
Agreed.
But anyway, yeah. So at this point, we've had the Switch 2 for about 2 weeks, give or take a few hours, because really I probably had more experience than you guys with it at this point. Most definitely Mitch, because Mitch just got it at this point 2 weeks ago. But I took the following day off because I knew I was going to be just wiped out from the midnight launch stuff. So, and I also didn't know that I would be getting back so soon after that. Like, I thought I was 150th in line, so I was prepared for a marathon. But the following day, I did play a good. The biggest chunk I have played so far was the following day. But we've had 2 weeks of varying degrees of time with this. So let's talk about the system itself. Drew, you went last time. You want to go first this time on like the build quality and physicality of the system? What do you think of it?
Yeah. So I remember telling you guys whenever I got my hands on it, I'm pretty sure I said something along the lines like, this feels like premium. And that's not like a diss towards any of Nintendo's consoles. I'm not saying that they aren't like premium consoles, but the Switch 2 is so sleek and it just feels like something that, you know, Sony or Xbox would make, right? Like it just doesn't feel like a Nintendo console. It doesn't look like a Nintendo console. And even like the boot up UI was just super, super impressive.
I wish it did that every time because that was so cool.
Yeah. So when I got my hands on it for the first time, like I was like, man, this just feels great. It looks great. I love how like it's got the weird like glossy stuff inside of the dock, and the Joy-Cons are a massive, massive step up from the original Joy-Cons. I've mostly, you know, gotten my hands on it being in docked mode, but I've also messed around with it undocked handheld mode, and it also feels great there. I honestly, like, I wasn't expecting it. Like, I knew that it was much bigger than both the Switch Lite and the original Switch, but in your hands, it's massive. Like, that sounds super weird. But yeah, no, it's an impressive console. I'm a fan.
I love the joysticks especially, and that's something we'll get to with the Pro Controller later. But it's a good feeling joystick. You're right, and I will throw shade at a lot of older Nintendo hardware. Like the Switch 1 feels positively toy-like in retrospect compared to this. Like the build quality is significantly improved, and the magnetic attachment to the Joy-Con is a thing of beauty. Like I love the trigger to remove them, the snap to put them on. It feels great. It sounds great. It's got I'm glad, like, one of the coolest things on the original Switch was like when you removed a Joy-Con, there was that little animation of color on the side of the screen indicating that you were pulling one off. They do that now, except it's not sliding anymore. It's just like impacting from the side. It's such a cool little touch that was unnecessary. And the UI is basically the same, but I do love the little sounds. The sounds are, I don't know, they're different, and maybe it's just because they're different, but I feel like they're a little quirkier, a little more playful, and I do like that.
Yeah.
But overall, like the build quality of it, like you said, Drew, like it does feel more premium. It just does. The last time a Nintendo system felt this premium was probably the GameCube.
Yeah, I will agree with that for sure.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, was that this is the strongest piece of hardware that Nintendo has done since the GameCube, and it's probably like top 3 in build quality and just like aesthetically pleasing nature, because they've never done anything like super what's the word I'm looking for, super like out of the realm of like super weird, I guess. I don't know, for lack of a better phrase. The SNES obviously looks very cool with the color scheme, and it's obviously extremely iconic. But in terms of like the hardware itself, like the Switch 2 is very unique, even being a successor to the Nintendo Switch.
It's edgy.
I echo. Yeah, agreed. It feels like it grew up, which is kind of funny considering the fan base grew up with it. But
yeah,
I echo every one of you guys' sentiments. The UI is pretty much the same with a few little upgrades. turning on the Switch 2 in at least in dock mode when it's off, it makes like a little like a ding, and I really like that. I don't think that was on the Switch one, right?
No, that's
I didn't
new.
think so.
It kind of scared me the first time. Not like horrifying, but like I was startled. I was like, "Whoa, what is this?"
I was like, "Did I turn it off? Was it on? Hello?" I really like that though, because all the other consoles they make like a distinct noise when you turn them on. So it once again like solidifies that it's like a legitimate, or it feels like a legitimate like modern day console. The ergonomics feel better, but I also have big hands, which obviously bigger machine is going to feel better in my hands. The boot up sequence, which Drew was talking about earlier, is one of my favorite things. I'm very sad that like I would turn off my console every single time if I could get that sequence every single time.
Yes.
But alas, I cannot. I actually like that.
Do a sped up mode. You know, they could at least like just kind of sweep all.
Yeah.
Like I would love that.
And it still wouldn't mess with sleep mode either, because Xbox and PlayStation both have like rest modes where like you don't have to do the full animation sequence unless you fully turn off your console. So I think that would just be a neat little feature, and they could always do this again, like in a software update. But one thing I wanted to,
but they could.
Oh yeah, true, very true. Same thing with Discord, which we'll get to in a second. But I really like the panel that we have, because if I'm not mistaken, you never upgraded to the OLED, right, Ryan?
I did not.
All right, so
I lost nothing in this transition.
Exactly. Drew came from the Nintendo Switch Lite. Ryan had the original Switch 1, and I've had the original Switch. I got an OLED, and my girlfriend owns a Lite. So I still do have all three of the lineup in my house. So seeing them side by side is actually insane. Like, I haven't taken a picture, but I probably should do that, of just like them being like boom, boom, boom. One thing I'll say about this is that coming from the OLED is noticeable that it's not there, but the screen is so good. And I akin that to like the PlayStation Portal, which I also own one of those. It's an LCD screen, but it looks very, very good. It's probably the closest thing you can get to OLED without being OLED, and $100 more. So I'm very happy with how it looks. The physicality of it, like holding it, it still hurts after like 2 hours, but like the battery life is obviously
that's all you're getting anyway.
Yeah, it's gonna be like, put me down anyway. You've had enough, pal. He's like, dock me already. Grab your controller. He's like, there's a reason you just spent $80 on that controller. Go grab that.
Yeah.
But overall, I'm very happy. A friend of the show, Jay, has a OLED Steam Deck, and every time he comes over, he brings that. And the Switch 2 doesn't feel like a step below that. It feels like it's on par with that, and I really like that.
Yeah, there are a lot of like PC handhelds are now a major thing. Like, and of course, like elephant in the room is I can't remember the order of things, because I know it's the ROG Ally X, but now there's the ROG Xbox Ally X or the ROG Ally Xbox. I don't know where the Xbox is slotted in there anymore, but you know, like that's a thing that's coming online soon. But there's obviously like competition in this space now, and I mean, although it's not really competition because it's very different audiences, but there have been comparisons online, and it's producing some pretty good results. That's like, you know, for the money you're paying, not bad, Nintendo, not bad.
100%.
So like a lot of people are saying this is really expensive, and it's like, well, yes, it is, but like compare it to the high-end PC handhelds that are out there, the really good ones. It's pretty good bang for your buck, all things considered.
It is. I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's ROG Xbox Ally X. They're trying to put a word in between the X's so it doesn't sound awful. But oh
double
my
X.
Gosh. Don't put all your X's in one basket, Xbox.
There's already 3 in the title. Sorry.
No, you're all good. When you're comparing this thing to those, like you can get a refurbished, or actually you might be able to get the brand new Steam Deck, but it's like the LCD one, so you're getting the same screen as a Switch. But we're already seeing in some third-party instances like Hogwarts Legacy, Cyberpunk 2077, like these games are running better on the Nintendo Switch, which is an incredible
Optimization
feat.
is the main thing there.
Yeah, agreed. But even then, like you can tweak your settings on a Steam Deck, like the same way you can do it on a computer. So it's like the fact that you're getting better performance on a Nintendo console, that tells you everything of where we are right now with the Switch 2. Of it's actually going to get, modern day launch day third party support. Like you don't have to wait a year plus for Doom Eternal to come to your Switch.
And I think like there's going to be a big difference between optimizing games for Steam Deck and optimizing games for the Switch 2, because these developers are going to be optimizing for another console. And so I think that in terms of like competition, we're going to see a lot of third party developers actually trying to make a good Switch 2 port. It's not just going to be, I don't know. Like, I feel like it's going to be different than trying to optimize for the Steam Deck when you have like all the variability of a Steam Deck. When you're just making it just for the Switch 2, like you don't really have to worry about that. So,
yeah.
And there's going to be good. Go ahead.
In a way, nobody does optimize for the Steam Deck because first off, the install base is so small, but second off, they're just PC games. Like it's not like there's a Steam Deck it's just a PC game and you scale it down to whatever you need to make it work. Now, some developers are doing that consciously, but it's in the minority, right? But like if you're putting something, now don't get me wrong, things can go wrong. One of the games we could talk about today is Street Fighter 6 runs notoriously poorly on the Series S. Something went wrong with that port. There are player-made patches to make that game work better, which is weird because like the Switch 2 is putting out image quality better than the Series S, not because it's better. It's not. But because it was optimized better, right? Like, so like even AAA studios can sometimes fumble the ball on optimization, but they're more likely to do it if the install base is large enough to invest the time to do it. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mitch.
Nope, you pretty much just took the same moniker that I was going to go, and just like there's an incentive for both Nintendo and the third-party developers to really like nail these optimizations. In that Nintendo was like, hey, we got a piece of hardware now that can hang out with Call of Duty. You can make the Maddens of the world, the NBAs of the world, and not be, mobile. Essentially, probably runs better on your iPhone than on your Nintendo Switch 1. And for the publishers and like the developers, like there's going to be such a huge install base on the Nintendo Switch 2 that you're going to be able to sell so many X million more copies of your games because you have that. And not only that, but going back to like the build quality and the physicality, and Ryan, you can speak to this more, but the mouse mode feature changes the way that you can play video games on the Nintendo Switch in general, but the Switch 2 ups the ante, and I think that's a really cool thing that Nintendo decided to do.
Yeah, I made it a goal. I was like, in launch window, I want to get something that has mouse support. My goal was Cyberpunk. But Cyberpunk
still hasn't come out.
It still hasn't come out. That is a long inside joke, but it's sold out everywhere I go. And it's not, now to be fair, sometimes I'm not actually looking. I'm just happen to be in the store. I'm like, I'm going to go back there and see if it's there. And it's just not there. But I was kind of torn between that and Civilization 7 anyway, because I love Civilization and it's way more niche. but it is also pretty darn mouse heavy. So like
Yeah.
it's actually a really good showcase for the mouse mode. Like it takes some getting used to because like your joystick becomes your scroll wheel. Which is weird to like, I mean, you get used to it, but it does take some getting used to, right? And it's not the most ergonomic mouse in the world. Obviously, it's a Joy-Con on its side. So like, you don't want to be doing this for hours and hours on end, but it's pretty serviceable. And I think with the right kind of grip or case, which inevitably, like, there's tons of people already doing 3D print models now, but eventually some third-party manufacturer or maybe even Nintendo themselves is going to release a grip that's just going to be solving that problem. But I have enjoyed the mouse mode. I wanted to test it out and pleasantly. I mean, again, I would have preferred having Cyberpunk because one thing I'm interested in is the idea of a mouse with haptics.
Ooh, yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
like a lot of the people that tried Metroid Prime 4 at the experience said that like if you're holding a charge for the arm cannon, you can feel the rumble in the mouse. And I'm like, that is so cool. I want to do that. Like, I want to, like fire a gun and feel a little bit of like recoil from the mouse. Like, that's a cool idea. Like, but alas, I had to stick with Civilization, which is, ideal way to play that game. So if you're not playing on PC, weirdly enough, Switch 2 is the best place to play it. So neat. And finally, like Civilization 6 and 7, I didn't play 7 on the original Switch. I wouldn't have tried. But 6 on the Switch did have some sacrifices. You did have to have smaller maps than the other consoles and PC was getting, of course. And all of the consoles had the downside of controlling a game that's designed heavily for mouse mode on a controller, which it's okay. You can get it to work. It's not real-time strategy, so you're not going to hurt for timing. But it is a little awkward. And so like having a mouse mode for something like that is neat.
Yeah.
I like it.
Can I ask you something about it real quick? Do they have crossplay on Civilization on the Switch?
I believe so.
Because that's really cool. Because then you could actually, like, I know it's not RTS, but you can kind of compete in some ways with like actual PC players.
Yeah, I do know there's no sacrifices in terms of like map size or player count or anything like that. So I think it is, but I want to double check that. Yeah. I haven't touched the multiplayer yet because it's very different than previous Civilizations, and I am learning this thing first.
Yeah.
Because
I have a Game Rant article here that says that it was even crossplay with the Switch, but with some drawbacks. So I imagine that it's still there with the Switch 2, and those drawbacks probably get eliminated in a patch soon, if not already.
Yeah, I think they're probably already eliminated because like I know in the Switch version you couldn't do the larger map sizes, and on this one you definitely can. So, which to be fair, I haven't done yet. I've done like a quarter of a Civilization playthrough, so like that's not a ton of experience with it, but it's enough to get my feet wet and to say that mouse mode is a good addition for this ecosystem because it allows for ways of controlling games that aren't available to some other things. I will say credit to Lenovo because their Legion Go has mouse mode for things. So that they were the first to do this. Like because Nintendo's big, people are going to assume this is the first. It's not. But they popularized it. So
It's true. Plus, Legion Go has the unfortunate ability of being like the least picked up PC handheld in the market.
Yeah.
So it's an undershadowed thing, but it's definitely something that they were like that set that apart.
Right. I mean, like if you're not getting the Switch 2 and you're getting a PC handheld and money's no object, go with the ROG Ally or wait for the Xbox version and get that one. I just wanted to say that Lenovo beat Nintendo to that idea. So let's not get ahead of ourselves and applaud Nintendo too hard on that one.
Funnily enough, I know someone that used to work at Lenovo, so props to them. Speaking of giving props, guys, I think we need to give Nintendo its props when it comes to game chat. I remember when we were on the Smash cast for the Switch 2 speculation, we were talking about what in the heck is this button? And then we learned that there was a C button. We were like, ooh, was it a cast button? And nope, it turns out it was a chat button. And the chat actually works pretty good. Ryan and I booted up the day after the Switch, and we played some Mario Kart World together. And we were like, you know what? Let's test game chat. And my Switch was probably, 5 feet away. I don't know about what yours was, Ryan, but
About
the audio quality was surprisingly good for us talking, across the room while our Switches are docked. Mine's closer to the ground level because I have it in my entertainment center. So
Mine's
there's plenty
right next to the TV speakers.
That's crazy because
Yeah.
I had mine. I had the TV, I had the speakers on. So it's crazy that our audio was super crisp despite obstacles being in our way, the distance and stuff. I'm actually kind of a fan of this.
Yeah, I mean, out the gate, it's not Discord.
Yeah,
we can lament that and be and that's really sucks for crossplay, right?
Good point.
There will be situations where Discord's just going to be better, but if you're playing a Nintendo game together, honestly, this may be the way to go. If only because as much as people are clowning on the fact that there's a button, it's kind of nice not having to go back to the main menu to adjust chat settings. You just pop up a thing, do your little settings, and then you're good to go.
It's so convenient.
Yeah,
it is. And it has so many options for you. You can hide because you can see everybody's perspective. Then you can have it the overlay on, or you can just have the chat overlay on. You can take it all the way completely. And you can adjust all of your chat settings right there on the fly, get right back into the game whenever you're done.
There's even speech to text.
I didn't know that. That's awesome though.
Yeah, it'll live transcribe your conversations.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's one thing where it's I feel that Nintendo, it seems just overall with the console, they haven't done anything where there wasn't much thought or intention behind it. There's gimmicky things that they've done in the past with their consoles, and it just wasn't really utilized. But the fact that the chat feature is fully realized and has that many options, even an accessibility option like that, is really cool. And then back to what we were talking about earlier with the actual build quality and physicality, those magnets are a game changer. Absolutely game changer. And there's so much thought and intention put behind it. And then Ryan, with what you're saying, the mouse actually working, and yeah, you got to get a little bit used to it with the joystick, but other than that, it works really well. And it wasn't just something that they tacked on the side to be hey, we did this.
It works in the menus, by the way.
That's great. I didn't know that either.
So if you just slap it down on the table and do whatever, it works on your menus.
That's awesome. Yeah, so it's I don't know. They put so much thought and effort behind this thing in a way that Nintendo, I feel hasn't done before. And honestly, just a lot of developers, there's always going to be something that a lot of the big consoles will have some sort of thing that's a little bit tacked on. But Switch 2 really, Nintendo just went swinging and they hit a grand slam.
Mitch, you and I both got the Pro Controller. We've talked about the Joy-Cons quite a bit, and they are a step up. How do you feel about the Pro Controller?
So I love the Pro Controller. I am now a Pro Controller connoisseur. Last year I bought the Xbox and PlayStations both, which are very pretty pennies. But so having that with the Switch 2 coming out and having the Switch 2 edition with the back paddles is a game changer. The back paddles are redefining of how I play video games. Not only just that, the face buttons, the build quality, the ergonomics of it just feels so much better. holding it like it. I don't know how to describe it without it sounding kind of derogatory. Like you can tell that the Pro Controller is plastic, but the plastic is such a good plastic that it's like I love the way that it looks and feels.
I don't know how to describe it. It like the word I'm going to use sells it short, but it's almost got like this rubber quality to it.
Exactly, right?
But it's not as like it doesn't feel as rough as rubber. There's not a description I have that's adequate. You just got to hold the thing.
And that's like it's the same thing for me with the Pro Controller, like the first Pro Controller, where like people are like, I don't need this. I have like the Joy-Cons that like slide into like the charging grip thing, and I'm like, it's not the same. Like once you get it in your hands, it's hard to not use that thing, especially when it's docked, which is primarily how I play it. Yeah, that's I would say 90% of my time has been with the Pro Controller. It's a controller that I can seamlessly switch between with my PlayStation and my Xbox, and especially now with the back paddles, it's so much more seamless that I don't have to worry about reconfiguring things. And that's one thing that I want to shout out that Ryan shouted out to me is that each game has programmable switch or the Pro Controller like configurations and layouts. Like each game can be customized, which is awesome.
So like if you were playing Mario Kart and you decided I want to use back paddle to the DL button to accelerate, you could do that, and that's normally A. But when you go to Legend of Zelda, it's not A anymore. It's whatever you programmed it to be last time. So like that's so neat per game, like without having to adjust it because you've started a different game. That is way cool feature. Another thing, two things I wanted to shout out about it. There's no midline seam. Like if in almost every controller I've ever had, down, like if you were to bisect it from the top to the bottom, like stand it up, and there's a seam in the middle of the controller. There is no midline seam on the Switch 2 Pro Controller. So I genuinely don't know how it's held together. But
magic.
But
yeah.
The other thing is like the control sticks feel really good.
And they look very good. They like the white accents underneath the sticks, just like the colors on this. The only colors on the Switch 2 are underneath the Joy-Cons. The white with the shoulder buttons also being white is such a nice touch.
Yeah, I was not sold on it when they first revealed it, but like seeing it in person, I was like, yeah, okay, absolutely. And I was already kind of leaning towards liking it more. But when I held it in hand, I was like, oh, this is a good controller. Well done, guys. Well done.
If I recall correctly, when we were on for that Switch 2 episode, like the one that we did all together with Vuk, we weren't high on it then. It was until like we actually saw it in person. We were like, ooh, that's actually very clean.
Yeah, absolutely. There's record.
It's true.
Roll the tape. You can see us change our minds on this in real time.
Another shout out that I want to give to Nintendo is that the thing that we were just talking about with each game being programmable, that's not a thing for Pro Controllers like on Xbox and PlayStation. Xbox has 3 configurations that you can do, and you click like the middle button on the Xbox. There's a button centered on the controller, not like the Xbox button itself. But you click that, and there's 3 settings. PlayStation gets 4, but you have to do that in the menus, like in like the options menu. It's a hassle, to be quite honest with you. The same way that Nintendo streamlined like the chat button being like get you straight in there to the chat functions, getting like to parties and stuff on Xbox and PlayStation kind of feel like a chore. So honestly, I wish there was a hot button for my PlayStation and my Xbox at this point because it's so convenient.
Yeah, but you don't want to sacrifice a back paddle to do that. Like,
100%. But like, there's a mute button on the PlayStation controller now. So like, because the inside of the DualSense is a speaker. A microphone and a speaker. So like, if you could do like triple click that and it would bring up the menu, that would be a nice little software update they could do. But again, they won't do that. But
yeah, just a long press, even like,
exactly.
Like you don't necessarily have to create a brand new button. That could be done in software.
Exactly.
But yeah, like I clowned on the chat button too, but the moment I realized, oh, I don't have to go back to the home menu to reconfigure chat settings, I was like, and also at the time we knew that the home screen layout was very similar to the Switch one. And I was thinking, if it performs like the Switch one, that's really disruptive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's like, I was like, maybe they added this chat button because they know it's disruptive and you would be way less likely to use it if you had to go all the way back, scroll down to that chat menu and undoubtedly sometimes you do, because the Switch 2 does support the old controllers, which don't have the chat button. So
True. Good point.
if you've got an old Pro controller laying around, you can do all that. You just don't have a chat button.
Yeah.
True. And you're not as cool.
That is true.
Spend the $90. Consume.
It's also got a great battery life. So
The first one, to be fair, the first one also had a great battery life. Because the Xbox technically doesn't come with a battery pack, so Nintendo's the only controller that, PlayStation does, but it lasts like 3.5 to 4 hours, so it barely has a battery in there to begin with. It's like a quarter you just stick in there, and Benjamin Franklin just shoves some lightning up to it every now and again.
Yeah.
But the Switch, like the Pro controller on the Switch, is genuinely fantastic. You don't have to charge that thing for days, and you can play for hours on end. It's insane.
it's good stuff.
Yeah,
They must have a
awesome.
patent on it because like no one else has come close to this. Like, what are we doing? Just contact Nintendo.
Well, to be fair, like the DualSense does things that, like the rumble in the DualSense is unparalleled. Like that, it's doing other things, and like speaker microphone situation. So it's
That's a
it's
fair
got a
point.
lot of good tech in there. So I imagine that's all fairly battery intensive. So it's a trade-off, right? And to be fair, we could all probably use a cutoff on our gaming sessions. 5 hours seems pretty reasonable.
Nah, man, we need more. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't have the Pro controller, obviously, but I really want to like get my hands on it because it looks cool from the pictures.
We're going to see. We're all going to see 28 years later tomorrow.
We are. I'm actually going to be hanging out with Mitch before we see the film, so
Sweet. I was going to
I
suggest
will
I might-
actually get a chance to feel it in my hands. But yeah, I definitely want to get my hands on it because the Joy-Cons are good and they're a step up, but you can only do so much with a Joy-Con. And I think like, especially now that like there's games that I play or could play on other consoles, but I can play it on my Switch and it like works now and it runs well. I'd love to get a Pro controller just for that. Like there's one day where Mitch and I played Fortnite on our Switch for a while, and that was a blast. But I wasn't doing as well as I could have because I was getting used to the Joy-Cons.
should have used the mouse mode.
That's true.
I still want to.
Yeah, I like part of the reason why I haven't is because I haven't like had a space where I can actually like properly use it.
Yeah.
I think like that's the biggest challenge with it. Whenever I get a chance to like actually try it out, though, I want to use it on Fortnite because I'd go sicko mode.
It's almost unfair.
Yeah. Well, that's like something that's cool because it's like, oh, now like when you're playing on crossplay and you're going against Switch users, it's like if I'm on my Xbox or PlayStation, I'm like, I might be going against a mouse user on the Switch, so I gotta watch out.
Yeah. They used to bifurcate away from everybody else, the PC players, because they realized that that's a problem, right? And now it's like, I don't know, man. Like the Switch 2 people could be playing with a Pro controller and they could be using a mouse, and I'm not sure which is worse to encounter in a dark alley.
The first couple of games that I played on Fortnite, I was getting like 20 kills and winning every single game. I've only not won one game out of like 15 on Switch 2, which is insane.
quite a streak you got there.
Well, there's a loss there in the middle, unfortunately, but yeah, that I spent the first night that I had it, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna boot up Fortnite because Drew and I play a lot of Fortnite.
I need to play. I've got to download it. Actually, I just haven't actually played it.
Honestly, that could be something that we could do very soon because I think that you'll like it. It's hard not to like Fortnite, especially Zero Build. I don't know if you guys heard that lightning striker right outside my apartment. It was like right there.
I didn't hear it, but I've had a few that have been like, I wonder if this is coming through.
I don't know if Pikachu or Ness is trying to strike me down, but yeah, Fortnite is a grand old time, and with it being free to play, the barrier of entry is literally zero. But downloading it, I guess it's based on your SD card, but it's
Zero
so much.
Build is very appealing to me.
That's the only thing we'll play. We're
Yeah,
not
I
sweats.
cannot play Build at all. I've tried it a couple of times and I can't do it, which is crazy because like whenever the game first came out, just had Build and I played that and I was able to do like pretty good, but can't do it anymore.
I mean, I remember the first time I played and I just kind of like, aha, I got you in my sights. I opened fire, got a few shots, and next thing I know, there's a shanty village around me. And I'm like, what just happened?
Yeah, unfortunately.
You had them, and like 2 seconds later, the Great Wall of China is built, and you're like,
Yeah.
all right.
And like, to be clear, like, I still played because like the battle royale aspect of it was still very new. And like, but I remember consciously thinking that moment, I was like, oh yeah, I am never going to be actually good at this game.
Yeah.
But
I
now
might have fun. That first day I did win a match. I'm not going to lie. I was doing some camping, but
Sometimes you got to do it.
yeah.
Especially in a game you don't know at first. You kind of got to like you got to do what you're comfortable with, and that's Call of Duty. Let's be honest. We're old here.
Yeah.
That I was playing with Call of Duty logic in mind. I was like, all right, I got to bottleneck them through this door. See what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it works, don't fix it.
It's true.
We're kind of already in it, but like, let's talk about some of our game experiences with this thing. Obviously, the big one we all got was Mario Kart World, and I'll shoot straight. I don't think this game is worth $80. That being said, the soundtrack might be.
Oh my gosh, yeah. That soundtrack is all time great.
Yeah.
It would not. I mean, I don't know how fair they'll consider it, but given like it's all new arrangements and orchestrations of mostly old songs, but honestly, this should be a music contender at the Game Awards.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So like it's just tons of Mario music, and not just like you would think they would just do Mario Kart, but no, like everything.
Even Donkey Kong, which like I know he's a character in the game, but he's not Mario, right? So
Right. There's always that like line between the two.
Yeah, so it's really impressive, and it's not just like a very like simple like rendition of each song. Like they're doing like completely new and different things with them, using different instruments.
Big band jazz everywhere.
Yeah, it goes hard. But yeah, the soundtrack goes hard, and so to your point about it not being like, it shouldn't have been $80. I agree with that because I think there's a lot of content in this game, but
100%.
I think that when you raise the price, especially when Nintendo doesn't do the $70, they go from 60 to 80 in that big of a price jump. It doesn't feel like this was an $80 game. $70, I'd be like, okay, like I can get behind just because that's kind of the standard now. But I don't know. There's something about the game that just hasn't like quite reached that for me. But the game is fantastic. Like I love everything about it. I think one of the like best things that they introduced was, because it's open world, transitioning from track to track, and when you start each new race, you're driving in from like the previous track. There's just something about it that's so satisfying, and I never get tired of. And the endless amount of characters and outfits in the game is, and parts. There's so many. Like, I'm still like unlocking stuff all the time. So I think there's a lot of like great things that they did with this. I don't know why they were like, hey, this is our $80 game.
I have a theory that maybe that might be partly to influence sales towards the bundle. Even so, that's not the complete picture. Price aside for a moment, it's a very well made game. It runs exactly as it's supposed to. It's Mario Kart, so like the fundamental fun is there. It's been there for a long time. It controls wonderfully. 24 racers is chaos incarnate.
Yeah.
But to me, the standout feature is because they have this interconnected world, they added this mode, Knockout Tour, which, we were talking about battle royales being a novelty when Fortnite came out. But this is a racing extension of that. There's like 6 segments in the tour, and at each segment, the bottom 4 racers are eliminated. And so like every racing game, when you get to that third lap and you're approaching the finish line, there's that butt clenching moment of, am I going to make it? And what Knockout Tour does is say, what if that happened 6 times? And it's very fun.
And it makes it even worse when there's blue shells. Or yes, when I spam like 500 red shells or the boomerang on Mitch and knock him out. That was so the 3 of us, my girlfriend, Mitch's girlfriend, and Ryan's wife, we all played like a pretty good chunk of Mario Kart World online together, played Knockout Tour. And that was intense because it really is chaos. But there were so many times, and it wasn't like I was going out of my way to do this to Mitch, but he just happened to be in front of me all the time. And I'd get the red shells, and I was just like, all right, boom, toss one, wait a little bit, toss another one as I'm driving by.
The worst thing is the NPCs do that now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
It's awful.
In the old ones, they would just like fire all 3 in a row like an idiot, right? But now they will absolutely wait for you to recover before firing the next one. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's all right. So before I get into my rant about Mario Kart World, because I'm on the opposite side of the fence than you guys, I think that this actually does justify an $80 price tag. And I'll tell you why. I've played like 15 hours of this game right now, and I've barely touched the open world segments because I'm so addicted to try and get these 150 cc's on Grand Prix and Knockout Tours, and I'm not coming close on the Knockout Tours, but for the Grand Prix, I'm almost done with the Grand Prix, and then I can let the enemies in this game absolutely destroy my day. But the reason I say that is because I think it's more justifiable if it does give us some tracks for free, or maybe not even free. Maybe if it's just like the way that they did with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, in that you be subscribed to their service and they'll give you like the free tracks, quotes for those free. But adding Knockout Tour, adding 24 like players, adding like the open world, and even though it's dull in comparison to other open world racing games, they could have done the bare minimum and not had the world function and like knocked off $10 the price. But I think that just having that open world free roam with your friends is such a unique feature. Maybe that's
the lobby for online too.
Yeah, and it's seamless. Like going, like what you're seeing on the screen of them just driving as like you go through the menus. You click the plus sign, and you're instantly in the world. Like the photo mode is really cool. Like they've modernized Mario Kart in a way that none of us were expecting. And there's obviously an argument for should video games cost $80 anyways, for both positive and negative. We're long overdue for price increases. And unfortunately, we've gotten a $20 increase in half of a decade. But we also went forever with it being $60. Nintendo was super late to the adoption of $70. The first one was Tears of the Kingdom. That one was the first $70 ones. But it's also, and I remember having this conversation, and if you've listened to Casket Minds for a while, I always bring up our video game group chat, which Ryan has been a part of, one of the founding members, because Ryan and I have been friends for over a decade at this point, which is insane to think about.
It's weird that I can measure time in decades.
I know, right? It's crazy. Nintendo has this pricing variability where, like, for instance, Mario Kart Jamboree came out in 2024, which is after Tears of the Kingdom. But that game launched at $60. You know, Bonanza is coming out in arguably with the quality and how deep this game's probably going to go, both literally and metaphorically. If you don't get that, the entire point of that game is to smash the center of the earth. But that game's launching at $70. So people are going to obviously make the comparisons between the two games of being like, well, this has so much more content, but it's also like, we played Mario Kart 8 from the Wii U to the Switch. And though there was obviously you had to rebuy the game, but there's so much time committed to this game, especially if you're on the Switch. You're going to get hundreds of hours of this game. And if you're measuring it like to that standard, you're getting way more than $1 to your hour quota. Because I know that's how a lot of folks measure like money to hour ratio. And if you want to talk about quality, the Nintendo quality and polish is a thing, minus Pokemon. But hopefully the Switch 2 is going to fix that.
Oh, brother.
To be fair, like, I don't even know if that's something that you can necessarily put the blame on Nintendo with, because that's Game Freak. That's all Game Freak.
It's mostly the Pokemon company. Like,
yeah,
because Game Freak just revealed what was it? Beast of Reincarnation. That looks pretty good. I mean, like,
that's true.
But the problem is they have like this annual release schedule because Pokemon is a multimedia empire, and in addition to games, they have animes and cards and stuff to sell. So, like,
That's true.
It's its own whole freaking problem. But yeah, to your point, Mitch, a lot of people have pointed out that in Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong and Pauline suspiciously only have 2 costumes each. Diddy Kong is notably absent. Funky Kong is notably absent. Could we be looking at a post-Bonanza Donkey Kong DLC?
That would be amazing.
Perhaps.
So, actually, speaking of like DLC for the game, or just like the post-launch stuff, I'm super curious how they're going to handle it. Since it is open world, are we going to see them making new worlds that we can roam around, or are they just going to add new areas onto the map? Like, I'm really curious how they're going to handle post-launch stuff.
I am too. I have no idea.
Or maybe we're just not going to get any more tracks. There's no way that would happen. But
or they could just be kind of like a versus only type thing. Or I don't know. I don't know. There's a number of ways they could do it. Or even just like there's several instances of like just kind of open areas where I could easily see them just like remodeling this, mile long strip into a track,
yeah.
I mean, Fortnite does something kind of similar. So it's,
Oh yeah.
We could see how wild would that be where there's events in Mario Kart where the world has changed?
That would be incredible.
I mean, it's certainly a thing that could happen. It would be a little bit of a shame if we got new tracks and they were locked to verses because like Knockout Tour is so freaking good. So if it were me, I would rather them only do like one DLC where they add a second continent than for them to give us a bunch of tracks that are locked just to verses.
Agreed.
That's just me personally. But yeah, they could do this a number of ways.
You know what else they can do in a number of ways, Ryan?
What's that?
screw me over. The amount of times that I've gotten to the last lap on the last turn, and I either get green or not green shelled, but red shelled or blue shelled, or someone takes a turn and uses that little boombox horn thing and flips me out. I almost threw my controller one day because I had done this Grand Prix 2 times in a row, and I got to the last place or last lap on the last race, and I get killed right before the finish line. And I'm like, you know what? It's time to give up on Mario Kart for the day because I am not dealing with this.
Tragic stuff. Let me tell you a course. We should probably wrap up pretty soon, but let me tell you a course that I have not figured out. Like I saw a comment and it is exactly right. Salty Speedway is a course where every path feels wrong. Like this, it feels like there is no right way to go through that course. And I have like, honestly, I should like race a time trial ghost to figure out how it's supposed to go. But like most of the time I can intuitively pick up maybe not the fastest way, but at least a serviceable way. But that one it's the one that's like Venice, right? Where there's like a canal that you can drive in and then there's like roads on the side. I am so horrifically bad at that course.
Shy Guy Bazaar is the bane of my existence.
So
every
sad.
time I get into the marketplace, I'm like bumping into every freaking like cargo thing, and I'm like, move.
Also, can I give a shout out to I love the bridge on the way into Crown City. That thing is absolutely amazing. The NPC cars are awesome in this.
Yes, they are.
Okay, so with the NPC cars, have y'all gotten to the UFO or like the truck that you can drive into? And like
I've gotten to the truck.
I haven't seen any of those yet.
There's also a boat.
Whoa.
There's like a big it's like a yacht thing that you can control.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I somehow just haven't seen any of those. Like, are they just like super, super rare or something?
Could be.
Yeah. And I think they're also sometimes hard to notice. And then like there was one tragic moment where I was concerned that it would never show up in multiplayer. But there was a tragic moment in one of our knockout tours where I was in like 12th place and I got a bullet bill, which is normally a good thing. But I saw the truck and I was like, no, let go. Get me out of the bullet bill. I want to take the truck. And it just destroyed the truck. And I was like, no.
Dang.
I was like, that's one situation where I kind of wish I didn't have the bullet bill. But real quick, there's another crazy thing I experienced. You know the seaplanes that are flying around?
Yeah.
There's a P-switch mission where you have to, drive through the rings. But it loads you up on this dock where you're supposed to drive up on the wing of a seaplane in order to get to the rings. And here's what's crazy. There's 2 other seaplanes flying in formation. And for this challenge, you're supposed to drive from wing to wing, precariously perched on top of a plane. It is some Mission Impossible stuff.
That sounds awesome.
It was awesome. I was like, it was a little touchy because it's like, you don't want to go too fast because you're just going to go right off the other side of the plane, so like you're just kind of like inching along, and like the first transition I was like, I feel good, and the second one just like it zipped past me. I was like, oh, I can't go that slow. But it was a weird mission, and like by the end of it, it flies you from this lagoon up to Crown City, and I was like, this is a cool challenge. Like if I find more of this, I'm gonna be very happy.
Yeah, I am loving my time with Mario Kart, and like every time I like touch my Switch, I'm like, I just really want to boot up Mario Kart and just go play out some knockout tour and let it ruin my life.
It's so digestible too. Like that's the thing about it. Like there have been times where I'm like, I sit down with the purpose of going, I'm gonna play some Civ, and I find myself doing Mario Kart instead, just because it's so quick.
It's quick, but it also it also can like pull you in for hours and hours.
One more race, one more Grand Prix.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
One more P switch.
But yeah, I mean, so we've kind of talked about the Switch 2. We've talked about our experience with launch date and the games. On the Smashcast, we rank things 1 out of 9 because that's how Smash Bros. Numbers things. Because evidently 10 doesn't exist. It's true for Mario Kart as well. But what would you guys give the Switch 2 on a scale from 1 to 9?
I'm going to go with an 8. And the reason I'm going with an 8 is because I'd probably give it something like a 7.5 if I were allowed to do 0.5s, but that's not how Smash works. So I'll round up for the sake. I'm also being kind of generous. I'm a sucker for new hardware. And even though this is super familiar, for the most part, the familiarity is good because the additions, the mouse controls, the game chat features, the VRR, the HDR implementations, the fact that so many games are getting these little updates software-wise, like it's making one of the best consoles of all time even better. And I don't think that it's masterfully done. I think that if we eventually get something like Discord on the Switch 2, I'm just gonna call it the Switch from now on because it's the Switch 1 doesn't exist anymore.
It is the primary Switch, yes.
Yeah, you have been 8. Switch 2 is a piranha plant, by the way. You're playing Nintendo's best games. You're getting GameCube. You're getting pretty much everything that you could possibly want out of a Switch with this. The only thing I wish that Nintendo would have done differently hardware-wise is giving me an OLED option. Because my dumb self is going to buy the OLED option when it comes out, and I'm going to have 2 Switch 2s, and Nintendo's just going to keep robbing my bank account as if it's Bowser. And it is, because Doug Bowser. But but I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I can't wait for Donkey Kong Bonanza. We're fresh off of the Direct for that. And yeah. I'm like, it's all I've thought about ever since I watched the Direct. Like, I just want to play Donkey Kong.
It's the coolest way we've ever gotten Odyssey 2.
True.
Yeah.
I don't even miss Mario for that. That's quite a feat to pull off.
My fantasy critic misses him, but that's all right.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
So long, Mario.
In your defense, that seemed like a slam dunk at the time.
It did. And I'm hoping for fantasy critic purposes that they're like, oh yeah, we're announcing Mario Kart or Mario next year, and we're like, oh yeah, I can drop this thing.
I honestly feel pretty confident that they're gonna have like a Mario Direct in September for the anniversary.
I wish.
I really don't know. Like, I'm beginning to wonder if now the way they're thinking about it is Donkey Kong is Mario in a way that, like we talked about, there was always that line between like Donkey Kong as a franchise and Mario as a franchise. I'm wondering if they're considering this the obliteration of that line.
Especially if Bonanza's theories come true.
Yeah, that would be so wild. But even like so much of this game is like, it's clearly the Odyssey team. It's built on Odyssey.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. And we just had Wonder recently, so I don't know what the future for Mario is. Of course, they could just like, guess what, guys? Galaxy 2.
That's true. We haven't gotten a Switch port of that, right?
No.
It's interesting.
I would play the crap out of it because I love those games.
Me too.
Yeah.
But Drew, what would you give it?
Yeah. I think I'm also an 8. I think I haven't nearly gotten my hands on it for as long as I want to confidently give it anything like higher or maybe even lower, because I haven't really like found anything in particular that like super bothers me. I think, I really do hope that we also Also hope that we see Discord added to it. I hope that we see some like other quality of life features added. I don't know if this is something that they could do like in a software update. I mean, like I feel like they probably could, but man, I would really love Nintendo to have some sort of achievement feature, trophy feature, because I would absolutely feel like even more inclined to play the games on there. But I think as a package, like this launched fantastic. There wasn't like any like crazy issues with it. Yes,
The internet would tell you otherwise, but
yeah, and they're wrong.
yeah.
Don't believe everything on the internet, you know? I think that the performance upgrades, the visual upgrades really, really sell this thing. Because man, I haven't like, you know, really gotten to dive deep into it yet, but I installed the Tears of the Kingdom update for Switch 2 or upgrade. And it's just insane how smooth it runs and how better it feels. And to me, like that is just what makes this console as great as it is. You've got great games that are now going to be better, and they're, you know, sequels or, you know, next iterations. You know, the sky's the limits here. And I think that's kind of what excites me the most about the console. Like you were saying with Mario, maybe they're blurring that line. They're getting rid of that line. That's got me excited because I'm like, I don't know what the heck that they're going to do with the next Mario, because it's obviously not going to be an Odyssey 2, because we're getting that with Donkey Kong, basically. So I'm like, man, I don't know where they're going with 3D Mario, but I'm excited because, you know, they can do a lot now. So I think the future potential for the Switch 2 has me super pumped. So yeah, I think this is a great console, and I can't wait to like just keep using it more and more.
Yeah, I have a lot to echo from both of you, so I'm going to try not to echo. Except the one thing I did want to echo is I'm also putting an 8 with the exact same caveat as Mitch, that 7.5 would feel about right. It does feel familiar in mostly good ways. I think one of the negatives we did touch on, but like didn't really go ham about, is the battery life is not great.
Yeah.
So like now, if you're playing docked, that's not so much an issue. But if you're deciding to take it somewhere, or that battery drains pretty quick, especially if you're doing something like Mario Kart. I imagine Cyberpunk eats that battery and spits it out.
You're probably getting 2 hours max of that, if that.
Yeah. So like I can imagine that some of these games in the future are also going to just chew through this battery. It's not a great battery. Or honestly though, similar devices end up having fairly close battery times. So like,
yeah,
maybe it's not an awful battery, but just batteries weren't necessarily meant to do this yet.
Yeah, it's the same thing for like the PC space. Obviously, those are like more powerful, so like you have more powerful batteries, but you're still not getting like an extraordinary more amount of time. Like the Steam Deck, you're probably getting an hour more max, and it's tinkering and whatnot. So it's just a fault of the medium at large. There's also a way of combating it. Just carry a USB-C charger everywhere, which almost every phone is now USB-C. So it's like an easy fix,
And one improvement they did is they put a USB-C port on the top that also charges. So like,
an underrated part of this.
Yes, because like it used to be, if you wanted to charge while portable, it's coming through the bottom, and that's awkward.
It is.
Most of the time you kind of want to rest it against yourself, and you can't do that with the cord sticking out. So like it going through the top is way better. And I'll say this too. I have never used the original Switch in tabletop. Never.
No, ever.
I could see myself doing it for Switch 2 just because it's a big enough screen finally. And also it charges at the top. So if you wanted to set it up in tabletop, you can charge it at the same time. But if I'm at a position I can charge, I'm probably at a position I can dock. So I don't know. But I could see a situation where I'm out somewhere with some friends and we set it up on the table. Like it doesn't feel too small for that anymore. But yeah, overall, I have a lot of positive things to say about it. And one feature we kind of touched on is that like plenty of Switch 1 games that weren't patched but just had uncapped frame rates just run better now. So like if you've got a back catalog of Switch games and you're thinking about upgrading but thinking, I don't know that Mario Kart World is enough first party content out the gate for me, you might want to consider the fact that a lot of your old games run better now. And that's the unpatched ones. There's plenty that have free patches. And then there's, of course, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom have that $10 upgrade. Or if you're an NSO expansion pack member, you get them for free. Those games look fantastic now. They run fantastic now. They feel like perfect realization of what they were supposed to be.
Yeah.
So like maybe you're right to say that Mario Kart is not a lot of first party stuff at launch. True. However, next month we're getting Donkey Kong Bonanza. Metroid Prime 4 is on the horizon. Pokemon Legends Z8 is on the horizon. Like it's not all here at launch, but it's spread out, and these games are long enough to where you're probably going to be done with one by the time the next comes out.
Yeah.
So like
we're still putting some hours in, and it's not like they're that far away. Like
no,
those games are right around the corner. So
that's right. So I don't feel like it's a terrible value proposition right now, provided you're under certain circumstances. So 8 out of 9 feels about right. I would give 7.5 if we were doing and a halves, but I'm feeling generous tonight. It's been a good conversation about a pretty good piece of hardware with a bright future, I think.
Yeah, I think if it's especially good for people like me who didn't love the Switch 1, just like playing every single game, but buying every single game. So now I have this massive first party back catalog that like I'm itching to play now that I actually can play it. And it's like, for instance, I love Pokemon very much so, not as much as Ryan and Jay, but I've played every iteration except for Scarlet and Violet because they ran like a picture show, like a
So
flip
bad.
motion picture show. So now that game is a legitimate game, I cannot wait to get into that generation of Pokemon. Same thing with Arceus to a lesser degree, but I'm excited to get into that. I've been replaying Breath of the Wild because that plays as smooth as butter. I mean, there's no dips in those frame rates while adding HDR to a beautiful art style. It's impeccable. I mean,
there are sunsets that are jaw-dropping in that.
Legitimately, I'm enjoying it. It's funny. I was telling Jax, my girlfriend, that the first thing I did when I got the Switch 1 was play Breath of the Wild all the time. And I was like, I got the Switch 2 and I'm playing Breath of the Wild. Like, not even
the Dr. Manhattan meme.
Yeah. I'm like, it's so fun to get back into this and play it because it feels like a brand new thing. Like, it's obviously an old experience, but like the frame rate and being able to like navigate the menus without like pausing or stutters, it's so refreshing. So that's what most of my time's been spent between Mario Kart and Breath of the Wild.
If you've been listening this long, thank you. I really appreciate it. And while you're at it, be sure to give us a like, subscribe, and share. And that goes for whether or not you're listening to this via Casket Minds or the Super Smash Cast.
It'd be really cool if you listen to them on both at the same time.
Yeah.
Honest to goodness, there's no reason you can't. If you've got Apple Music or Apple Podcast and Spotify, open one on one on the other, mute the one, listen to the other. Help us both out. I mean, really, we would appreciate it. We like doing this stuff. We would love to make money doing this stuff. So help us out. And for both of these podcasts, the other podcast information will be in the notes in the description for you to be able to access them Anything you guys want to announce ahead of time for Casket Minds?
We're going to be doing our latest episode soon, which is just there's more Summer Game Fest stuff going on. So next week there will be a Capcom showcase showing Resident Evil 9, some Street Fighter 6 Year 3 stuff, Pragmata. There's a lot of cool stuff still happening for Summer Game Fest, but we're gonna be wrapping up our thoughts on like all the showcases and whatnot, and getting that out as soon as possible.
Yep.
Excellent. That sounds like a good time. And for the Super Smash Cast, our next episode will be about Metroid on the NES, and Mitch will be joining us to talk about Metroid. It's a classic.
It is a classic. I don't know if I'll roll credits because I did that recently, but I definitely can't wait to get back in there, and because I've been going through the series. I'm actually at a stalemate right now with it, but I got majority through the way through the series, and I'm excited to go back to the very beginning again.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time. But I'm looking forward to that episode. Of course, we'll talk about the fighters Samus and Ridley because this is their debut game. Weird to get 2-1 on such a niche franchise, but that's going to be a fun episode. Look forward to that next. Enjoy.
See you later.
Alligator.